An Unexpected Killer. This is part 2. Part 1 will be labeled as such.
Relationship that she was having. This is somebody that she was definitely having a relationship with. It's just the scale of the relationship they were having was different in both of their minds.
She was a lot younger than him. She was at the time period of her life where I think she just wanted to go out and have fun and be a teenager and be someone that just graduated with high school, and she was looking forward to going to college. Where he, I think, was at the stage of his life where he goes, I just met my trophy girlfriend. I want to marry her. I want her to be my property and only my property. And, and then those two things collided, and as they often do, not just in Bianca's case, but in many cases where, that possessive personality where, you belong to me instead of, we're going to share some time together. We're going to share, our love with each other turns into, if I can't have you, nobody else will.
Bianca was not as serious about the relationship as Brandon was. According to her mother, Bianca would not go as far as to call them boyfriend and girlfriend, that she referred to him as a friend.
I think it's very clear that Bianca does not feel the same way about Brandon.
Investigators also contact Brandon's family to try to find out what could have triggered this anger.
Brandon Clark obtained different odd jobs. At one point, he was a Lyft driver. He drove for different ride-sharing services. He did odd jobs for an individual in a construction capacity. He grew up in a very violent household with his father and mother. He bounced around between foster carers and family members who would take him in for periods of time. He never really had an itch in life, and he was searching for that, and I think he saw something he really loved in Bianca and wanted to hold on to it.
But with that going on, he had people in his life that didn't care for him, including his aunt and his grandmother. We found out he had actually left his grandmother a voicemail admitting that he had killed Bianca.
To replay this message, press 4. Hey, Grandma, it's Brandon. I hope I would be able to reach you, but I guess I'm not able to. So I know this is going to come as kind of a surprise, at least to you, isn't to me. But I killed someone today. I killed my girlfriend. Well, she's supposed to be my girlfriend, but she cheated on me. And I just...
Detectives visit Clark's home, and it's evident his actions were well thought out and planned. It also gives officers an insight into his mind.
He was living with his aunt at the time. When they got there, she directed him to his basic room. He collected a lot of different things, comic books and toys, and the main thing that was located in Brandon's room was this handwritten note, kind of like, I want this person to have that, I want this person to have that, and kind of just put in there that, I'm not going to be around anymore, and I'm sorry for that, but here's what I'd like to have done with my stuff. Here's who I'd like to have you contact and let them know I'm sorry and that I love them. It included his parents, his grandmother.
For us, the importance it had was he wrote that note before he went to pick her up, before he went to the concert with her, and he didn't go back. So he had done it all in advance, which for us was evidence that this was certainly something that was planned by him in advance.
Images of the murder taken by Brandon Clark are being shared and are spreading rapidly throughout the global online community.
No one had seen anything like this before, where anybody would share such gruesome photos and continue to share them, and it attracted media and attention from all over the world.
The images were up for a period of time before we could contact the social media to get them to take them down. There's a lot that goes into play with taking images off a social media site. There's First Amendment issues that are involved. There are other issues at play when it comes to censoring posts on social media sites. There's certain rights that people have to post what they would like.
People made copies of them, and to this day, it's impossible to stop somebody from putting it on whatever platform they want. Some of these photographs are being actually sent to the family, which I don't understand that logic, why anyone would want to do that to a loved one.
There are some people that are just very cold and very cruel and did not take into account the fact that every time this picture is shared, it's potential to re-victimize Bianca's family.
People are attracted to that type of disturbing behavior, and there are people out there, a small percentage of the population, that seek their own attention, and by sharing that brings that attention to them.
But you really saw the underbelly and underside and dark side of the internet where, people were praising Brandon for his act. There's this whole subsection of individuals who call themselves incels, and they blame the female genre for creating situations in which men cannot have love with females. And those particular individuals and those like them were praising Brandon for his act. And they were, sharing that image everywhere and saying that this was Bianca's fault for being an e-girl and being a tease and creating an internet life where all she wanted was attention, and Brandon was in the right for taking that away from her.
As the murder investigation continues, detectives learn of a third person who attended the concert with Clark and Bianca on the night in question. The man's name was Alex.
Once we were able to extract information from Bianca's phone, we learned that she was having a conversation with Alex via text message. At that point, we were able to get his cell phone information, his cell phone number, and ultimately be able to track him down to where he lived in New Jersey. And we were able to have a conversation with him, and then he shed some light on what the relationship was between them and what happened at the concert.
4 o'clock, it's okay. Is my door open?
Utica police are
this is
investigating the
where
murder
you
of
come in.
17-year-old Bianca Devins. On the night of the murder, Bianca had spent the evening with two men she had met online,
I think the
Alex
door's
and
closed.
another man, the prime
You didn't
suspect,
potty up there,
Brandon
did
Clark.
you, Eddie?
We learned
Because I'm
that
going to check.
him and Bianca had started an online relationship that led to text messages. We learned that at the venue was the first time that they had ever met in person.
We do learn from Alex that they leave the concert together and they go to a bodega, where the plan is for Brandon to go into the store to buy rolling papers, which, by accounts he does. He goes into the store, and Bianca and Alex have a conversation and share a kiss at that point. It seems that after that, the kiss is observed and witnessed by Brandon, that the three of them get back in the car and start to smoke marijuana, but Brandon does not partake. So it's just Alex and Bianca. And according to Alex, they begin to have a conversation. It gets kind of tense between Alex and Brandon about this conversation. And Alex, Brandon, and Bianca kind of go their separate ways. Alex heads back to his home, and he is communicating with Bianca as Bianca and Brandon are coming back up here to where Bianca lives. And some of the messages, I believe, are Bianca tells him, I think he saw us, and I think he's kind of mad, he's upset.
Utica police contact NYPD to retrieve the CCTV footage from the event and confirm Alex's story.
We have them on venue camera arriving at the location. It's a very small venue, and it's a small gathering at the Nicole Dollinger concert. You can see the three of them just kind of standing in the back. And Alex is actually, he's a very tall person. He's well over 6 feet. And so he's pretty easily identifiable in the small venue. So the three of them stand there for the duration of the concert, and then they leave.
Detectives start piecing together Bianca and Brandon's movements after leaving Alex.
Through the assistance of New York State Police and the New York City Police Department, that both Brandon and Bianca were returning to Utica, New York, crossing the Whitestone Bridge at around 11:30 p.m. We also know that about 3:05
DA's office receive information that forensics has uncovered extremely disturbing evidence on Brandon's phone.
We received a phone call from our investigator who was conducting the forensic download of the phone and advised us that basically that this crime that was committed on video. It had been recorded. And at that point, you can imagine how shocked we were that this piece of evidence existed. And so we went to go view the video, and it was about as horrific as you could imagine it to be.
What we see is, it's perhaps the worst thing I've ever seen in my 9 years as a prosecutor. It starts with Brandon and Bianca in the back seat, and he has it on record.
Okay, Lulu,
In
that's
like a
enough.
vent clip in the
Lulu,
front of the car, right on the dash.
Lulu.
And then he sits down, and you can see that he's facing the right way.
Lulu.
But that Bianca he has the seats pushed back so that her legs are almost in the trunk because the back seat is laying flat in the SUV, and her head is up by the driver's seat.
This is my day.
The next thing you see is Brandon reaches behind him to the right into the trunk, and you see him pull out that black handle knife that's in the photographs that he's posted to Discord. At that point, he wakes her up, and we can see that she's still alive. She's uninjured, and for us, we learn a couple of very important things. One, we can see, because of how the camera is on the dash, we can see right out the back window of the trunk. So we know they're on Post Street. So now the question of where she's killed is solved and answered for us. We know she's alive when they get here to Utica, that she's been alive from when they left New York City to the whole drive here. And then he confronts her. He confronts her about the things that he witnessed. She tells him that she's sorry, that, she's sorry he's hurt, and they kind of go on having, this discussion about the state of their relationship, whether or not they're going to continue to see one another, and then he does something which I think we're all kind of gearing up to see if the murder is captured on video, which we learned that it is, but what we're kind of unprepared for at first is Brandon hits her. He hits her across the face, and he hits her very hard, and he hits her very loud, and she really doesn't say anything to him about it. But she basically tells him that she's ready to go home, that she's not sure if they will see each other again, that she will maybe leave that up to him. And at that moment, she kind of looks away, and Brandon takes the opportunity to pick up the knife, and he grabs her by the back of the head, and he cuts her throat. She fights for her life. She really does. You see her physically struggle, but she is tall, she's thin, and Brandon is, without a doubt, bigger and has the ability to overpower her, which he does. And he pins her down to the back seat, and he's yelling at her. He's blaming Bianca, saying, "You made me do this. Why did you make me do this?" And what most people don't know, they know that there's a video of the homicide, but what they don't know is that he then retrieves the cell phone from the front vent clip, and he brings it to the back seat, and he presses record, and he videotapes very close to what I would presume would be Bianca's absolute last breath. As she lays dying in the back seat, he's telling her to close her eyes and that she's going to go to sleep. And he films the entirety of that, and you hear her struggling to breathe, and ultimately she succumbs to that wound to her throat.
From talking to all the people involved in it, I know how damaging and devastating watching that video has been to them. I don't know how many nights I haven't slept because of that video. It's just been very,
Lulu?
very.
Detectives are informed that the murder video is circulating the internet and rush to get it taken down.
The amount of misinformation that was put out there through the internet was definitely a challenge to keep up with, because once the wrong information gets out there, it can take a life of its own.
With huge concern amongst Utica police that the graphic video of 17-year-old Bianca Devin's murder, filmed by her killer Brandon Clark, is being distributed online, officers attempt to control what is being shared and posted from the tragedy that night.
One of the big things right from the beginning was trying to dispel a lot of the rumors that were circulating in social media, was that there was a video of the murder. We knew that there was a video of the murder, but we had no evidence that that video had been published anywhere. We note that it wasn't released through his phone. We were able to locate that video, and it was clearly not the video that was related to this case. It was kind of a prank video that somebody took and said that it was a video of this crime, which depicted the two people that were similar in description to Brandon and Bianca, but it clearly was not the video. We knew that for sure because we had the video. The video was kept under wraps, and we did not release any of that information to the media.
On the internet, someone's posted this text message conversation supposedly between the two of them. I know that's not true. It's a fake post. So I try very much to not get lost in the outside world, but only what we've extracted and put together between the two of them.
Investigators visit the hospital to interview Brandon Clark, who is unhelpful, and realize he is loving the notoriety.
One of our officers that was on guard at the hospital observed him get angry that he had missed the newscast related to this case. It was something he was interested in seeing. Things we learned throughout this case that this case was all about Brandon, and he wanted to blame Bianca for what he had done.
What would you want to do? I'll tell you what. Okay, take your time. You can ask me, and I can ask you. So you would like to talk to me now? Yes, no. I have to get through this, and then we can have a whole conversation.
Brandon declined at that point to talk to him, which is his constitutional right to not talk to the police and incriminate himself. So at that point, Investigator Pell, ceased any conversation and left the hospital.
Officers received the arrest warrant, and Brandon Clark is formally charged.
Here in New York State, we don't have a requirement of premeditated murder, but planning certainly helps to show intent. We have murder in the second degree, which is intentional murder.
Bianca's death has a huge impact on the community.
Her family put out some pink ribbons in the area that they live. You could go through that neighborhood and you knew that this is where she grew up. And I think it gave everybody some solace to know that people were thinking of Bianca.
There were two vigils that were held. A lot of her friends were there. They had candles and they remembered her and they had photos of her.
It was attended by a large number of people in the community that knew her and knew her family and really wanted to show support. The crime scene itself, the city actually had to barricade a dead end because people kept going down there at the scene where she was killed.
Her mother set up a scholarship fund in Bianca's name and also an art show because Bianca was a wonderful artist. She loved to draw. And this was in her memory, and her mother had displayed many of her drawings around the house.
So I would say Bianca will live on in this community, and certainly her memory will.
While preparing for trial, investigators come across even more crucial information on Brandon's phone.
the cell phone really kind of becomes a treasure trove for us when it shows his intent to kill her. We learn that he kind of meets her in May over Instagram, and that he begins to search her and her different internet handles on various different platforms. And then he also begins to search different things like how to conceal a camera in a car, hanging, by which has some evidentiary value to us or significance to us because we find a rope at the scene. As we are pulling more data off of this phone, we see that he has done internet searches for months, and then as we're getting closer to the date of the homicide, weeks and days leading up to it, his searches begin to get a little bit more narrow. And those searches are specifically for how to render a person unconscious, various types of chokeholds, as well as the carotid artery. One of the things that supporters of Brandon have said was that he's always intended to commit suicide and that he didn't intend to hurt Bianca at all. But for us, the evidence speaks to the alternative, because the searches are how to render another person unconscious, not himself, how to choke out another person to incapacitate them. So that would be kind of what I would say to those folks is this was very directed at causing harm, not only to somebody else, but specifically to Bianca.
With all the evidence collated, police start centering on the motive for the killing. They determine that jealousy is key to the case.
This jealousy boils over to a point of physical abuse, verbal abuse, and then murder.
One of the things we did was we obtained search warrants for his various accounts for Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Discord. We were able to see the first one, I believe, that went out was the one on Discord. And it was that initial picture of her body, which had caught so much attention, that ultimately kind of initiated those two, I would call them good Samaritans in Tennessee and Utah, to call 911. And it said, now you're going to have to find somebody else to orbit.
We then learned that an orbiter is an individual who provides another individual immense amount of attention via gifts, money, or just simply accolades online. That individual who is seeking that attention has this group of followers called orbiters around them in their online persona.
And that was something that Brandon did not like, and ultimately was telling them to they won't be able to orbit around her.
A lot has been made about Discord and Instagram, but in our eyes, even from the beginning, those things were evidence. But our theme was that this was really truly Brandon is a domestic abuser that killed what he thought was his significant other because she didn't want to be with him.
In the pre-court session, Brandon Clark enters a not guilty plea, and it is apparent he wants to shift responsibility for his actions.
There were secondary sources, online bloggers and things of that nature, who got to Brandon, who said how famous he could be and that it wasn't his fault. And I think he interpreted that he could remain in the public eye if he withdrew his guilty plea, but certainly was never about remorse and the fact that he did something wrong. It was just about how can I maintain my sense of public image that Brandon Clark wished so desperately to have.
On February the 10th, 2020, just weeks before he is due to stand trial, Brandon Clark changes his plea.
Brandon was sentenced to 25 to life per our agreement, that he receives no plea bargain in this case because the crime he committed and the way he committed it deserves no leniency in any regard. The maximum is what he deserves, and that's exactly what he got. So he will be spending the next 25 years to life in a New York State prison.
It is devastating for the e-girl internet community of thousands of followers.
If one thing this case really people could take away from him, it's the importance of letting our children know how dangerous it is to put yourself out there into the internet world where you do not know who's looking at you and what they're doing and what their motivation is with what you're putting out there.
I can't think of another case that we've handled in this office where the family is constantly subjected to a barrage of, if they go on the internet, of seeing these images again. No other victim's family, in my experience, has had to deal with that situation. So it's different, and I feel for them because they're dealing with a whole new situation than most victims' families have to deal with. Picture their loved one's murder being in cyberspace for ever, I guess. I don't think it's ever going to be possible to find them all and get them all down. So I do feel for them in that respect.
The victim's family wants one thing back that nobody can give them, and that's their loved one. And it's the hardest part. You hold the vigils, you do all those things, the scholarships, but the one thing they want back is their child.